Welcome, dear viewers, to our channel where the veil between reality and nightmare grows thin. Tonight, we delve into the unsettling world of deserted motels, those lonely beacons on forgotten highways where shadows linger and whispers echo through empty corridors. We have three tales of terror for you, stories of travelers who dared to spend the night in these desolate places and lived to regret it. Turn off the lights, lock your doors, and prepare to be drawn into the darkness.
The old Chevy pickup rumbled down the desolate highway, its headlights cutting through the oppressive darkness. The driver, a weary traveler named David, gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white with fatigue. He had been driving for hours, desperate to find a place to rest. The storm outside worsened, the wind howling and rain lashing against the windshield. Just when his eyelids felt heavy, a faint neon glow pierced through the downpour. A sign, barely clinging to its rusted pole, flickered in the distance. Motel vacancy. Relief washed over David. He steered the pickup towards the flickering beacon, pulling into the deserted parking lot. The motel was shrouded in an eerie silence, the only sound the relentless pounding of the rain. Every window was dark, every doorway swallowed by shadows. David hesitated, a prickle of unease crawling up his spine. But exhaustion outweighed his apprehension. He stepped out into the storm, his boots splashing in the growing puddles. The motel office was dimly lit, dusty lamps casting long shadows across the worn furniture. Behind the counter, an old man, his face etched with wrinkles, looked up, his eyes narrowed in suspicion. He grunted a greeting, his voice raspy. David asked for a room, his voice barely a whisper above the howling wind. The old man slid a key across the counter, a single tarnished brass key attached to a faded plastic fob. "Room 13, he croaked. "Don't be wandering around at night. No good comes from it." David took the key, a sense of foreboding settling over him. He found his room at the end of a long, shadowy corridor, the air thick with the smell of damp and decay. He pushed the door open, the hinges groaning in protest. The room was small and sparsely furnished, a single bed pushed against one wall, a rickety nightstand the only other offering. He tossed his bag on the bed and sank onto the mattress, exhaustion claiming him. He awoke with a start, his heart pounding in his chest. The storm had intensified, the wind now a relentless roar against the window panes. And then he heard it, a soft, scratching sound coming from the other side of the wall. He sat up, listening intently. The scratching continued, slow, deliberate, like claws dragging down the plaster. Fear coiled in his gut. He told himself it was just the wind, just the old building settling. But the scratching grew louder, more insistent. He got out of bed and crept towards the wall, his hand trembling as he reached for the faded wallpaper. As his fingers brushed against the cold, damp surface, the scratching abruptly stopped. Silence descended, heavy and suffocating. He held his breath, listening for any sound, but there was nothing. He returned to bed, his mind racing, his body tense with fear. He closed his eyes, willing himself to sleep, but the scratching began again, louder this time, more insistent. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, terribly wrong. He had to get out of there.
The old Sunset View Motel stood like a forgotten relic on the edge of town, its neon sign a faded, flickering promise of better days. Once a popular stop for vacationing families, it had fallen into disrepair, abandoned to the elements and the whispers of darker times. It was this air of faded glory and chilling mystery that drew a group of friends, Jenna, Mark, Ashley, and Chris, to the abandoned motel. They were drawn to the thrill of the unknown, the adrenaline rush of exploring a place reclaimed by shadows and silence. Armed with flashlights and a healthy dose of bravado, they parked their car under the flickering neon sign, the only sign of life in the desolate parking lot. As they stepped out of the car, a shiver ran down Ashley's spine. The air hung heavy and still, thick with the smell of decay and the weight of unseen eyes. "This place is creepy," she whispered. "That's the point, Ash," Mark said, his voice laced with excitement. "Don't tell me you're chickening out already." Ashley tried to force a smile, but the feeling of unease lingered. They approached the main building, its once bright facade now peeling and faded, windows like vacant eyes staring out at them. The front door creaked open with a groan. The air inside was thick with dust and the musty odor of decay. Cobwebs hung in dusty drapes from the ceiling, and the furniture was draped in white sheets, giving the room the eerie air of a forgotten funeral parlor. Undeterred, the group of friends ventured deeper into the motel, their flashlights cutting through the gloom, illuminating the remnants of a bygone era. They explored the deserted rooms, each one frozen in time, as if the occupants had simply vanished into thin air. Half-eaten meals lay abandoned on dusty tables, clothes still hung in closets, and personal belongings lay scattered, silent witnesses to lives interrupted. As they moved deeper into the heart of the motel, the atmosphere grew heavy, the silence pressing down on them. It was in a room at the end of a long, shadowy hallway that things took a sinister turn. The room was different. The air was noticeably colder, sending a shiver down their spines. The furniture was in disarray, as if there had been a struggle, and an overturned chair lay on its side. As they stood there, a cold breeze swept through the room, ruffling their hair, and then they heard it, a soft whisper, barely audible, seeming to emanate from the very walls themselves. They froze, their blood turning to ice in their veins. The whisper came again, closer this time, a mournful sigh that seemed to speak of unspeakable sadness and pain. The hair on the back of their necks stood on end, and a primal fear, cold and sharp, gripped their hearts. "Did you hear that?" Ashley whispered, her voice trembling. Chris, his face pale, nodded slowly. Even Mark, the skeptic of the group, seemed unnerved. The whisper came again, louder this time, and they could have sworn they heard their names being called. Panic surged through the group. They turned to flee, but the door slammed shut with a resounding bang, plunging them into darkness. They didn't hesitate, didn't look back. They scrambled out of the room, their hearts pounding in their chests, and fled into the night.
Chapter 3. The Family's Dark Secret. The station wagon, packed with luggage and nervous energy, sputtered down the deserted highway. The Miller family, John, the worried father, Mary, the sad mother, and their children, Emily and Ethan, were starting a new life. They were leaving behind a sorrowful past that clung to them like a shadow. As dusk settled, they saw a sign, Restwell Motel, 1 mile. John, desperate for a break, steered the car towards the promise of rest. The motel stood like a forgotten sentinel on the edge of a dark wood. Its flickering neon sign cast an unsettling glow over the building. The parking lot was deserted, save for a lone, rusted-out pickup truck. Despite the decay, John felt a strange sense of relief. They had found a place seemingly untouched by the outside world. He ushered his family into the dimly lit office, thick with the smell of dust. Behind the counter, a woman sat hunched over a book, her face hidden in shadows. She looked up, her dark eyes seeming to bore into their souls. John, forcing a smile, asked for a room. The woman slid a key across the counter, her fingers lingering on the brass. "Room 7, she rasped. "Best you lock your door tight tonight." John, unnerved, quickly ushered his family to their room. Room 7 was small, its wallpaper stained and peeling. The single window was partially boarded up, casting the room in twilight. Emily and Ethan ran excitedly around the room. Mary couldn't shake the feeling of unease. She felt as if they were being watched. As darkness fell, the feeling of dread intensified. Strange noises echoed, footsteps, whispers, and distant laughter. Emily and Ethan huddled close to their parents, eyes wide with fear. John paced the small room, his mind racing. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. As the night wore on, the strange occurrences escalated. Emily swore she saw a shadowy figure peering in through the window. Ethan claimed the water in the sink had turned blood red, and Mary felt a cold hand brush against her cheek. John decided they had to leave. He packed their belongings, his hands shaking. He gathered his family and led them to the door, but as he reached for the doorknob, it wouldn't turn. The door was locked. They were trapped.
Thank you for venturing into the darkness with us tonight. We hope these tales of deserted motels and the unsettling events that transpired within their decaying walls have chilled you to the bone. If you enjoyed these unsettling stories, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more chilling tales. Until next time, sleep tight, and remember, sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones we carry within ourselves.